Did you know that in ancient Israel, there was a Jewish Supreme Court that was made up of 71 judges? Shalom, my friends. This is the Akiva Gersh with Israel in 5, where we give you everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or want to keep the conversation going, please do so below in the comments. If you look in the Torah, the Hebrew Bible, there are many passages that have to do with court cases, with judgments, with punishments, consequences for someone breaking the law. There's many laws in the Torah, and each one has a bit of a different kind of consequence if someone does violate that law. So courts are very, very important in the Jewish system of law. In fact, it's one of the 7 Noachide laws, right? That people should set up courts of justice in their societies. And there were 3 different kinds of courts in ancient Israel. There was a court of 3 judges, and they took care of all the very everyday kind of matters, things that would happen all the time. And there were these courts in all different towns scattered throughout the land. Maybe someone's ox, ran into someone's field and did some destruction, or maybe somebody stole someone's chicken. Those were the courts that would deal with those everyday kind of matters, many money matters, in fact. Then there was a court of 23 judges. They dealt with those violations that actually could bring a punishment of a death sentence. If you look in the Torah, there are laws that if violated, there is a death sentence that comes with it. Now, don't worry. It says in the Jewish oral tradition that death sentences almost never, ever got passed. For various reasons. It's a whole interesting and complicated section of the Talmud, but it is there. And the courts of 23, they dealt with that. And then there was a court of 71. It's called the Sanhedrin. That was the Jewish Supreme Court, 71 of the top sages of a generation. Now, there's very many interesting details and laws having to do with the Sanhedrin. In general, the Sanhedrin, these 71 judges, they dealt with the big issues, right? The big issues of national importance, things that would really affect the nation as a whole. And they typically sat halfway on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, inside the temple, and half outside the temple. It was one, kind of big room, but half the room was technically on the Temple Mount itself, and half of it was technically outside the Temple Mount, extending outwards. What was that for? It was the reason behind that, the spiritual reasoning behind that, is that the judges there should get the spiritual influence from the temple, which was the holiest place in all of Judaism, where they would bring the sacrifices every day and do the worship and connect to God and connect heaven and earth. They should get that influence, but they should bring it out into the world. Right? It should inspire their judgments, their teaching of the nation, their guiding of the nation in everyday kind of practical ways. So it's kind of like spiritual and physical mixed together. The 71 judges were led by 2 main sages, kind of like a president and a vice president, so to speak. And those 2 sat in the front of the court, and the other 69 sat in rows, in rounded rows, so everyone could equally see each other. And they sat in order kind of wisdom, so to speak, and experience. So the youngest, newest person who was in the court, he sat in the last row at the very, very end. And as time went on and people left the court for whatever reason, people would switch their seat to get closer and closer to the front. There are interesting kind of things in general about the court cases. If we look at that court of 23 again that dealt with the death penalty, there's this interesting law in Judaism that says if all 23 of the judges say, yes, the death sentence should be passed here, the person doesn't get the death sentence. Why? Because it's saying if nobody could see anything for the merit of this person, something must be off, something must be wrong. The judges would question the witnesses very, very carefully in a very, very deep way. And if anything was off, the judgment was thrown out. Why? Because in Judaism, there's this idea that there's heavenly judgment and there's earthly judgment. We're doing our best on here to do earthly judgment. Even if we don't get it right, there will be a heavenly judgment. And that kind of played its way into the Jewish court system. Last thing I want to share with you is that eventually we know that the temple does get destroyed in the year 70 CE by the Romans, the second temple. And the leader of the generation at the time, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, before the destruction, he knew something bad was going to happen, and he basically was able to sneak out of the city. The Romans had a siege around Jerusalem, and he made a deal with the Romans, allowing him to take the Sanhedrin out of the city. allowing it to survive, because he understood that the temple was going to be destroyed, that Jerusalem was going to be destroyed. That was all basically a sealed fate. But the Sanhedrin is the heart and the soul of the Jewish people, and we must save that. And he took it to a place called Yavne, towards the coast. And eventually, for the next few hundred years, the Sanhedrin changed locations all over Israel, eventually going to the north to a few different spots there. And in the 5th century CE, it was in Tiberias in the north, and that was the last time the court ever held session. And after that, it was actually banished and banned by the Roman leaders of the day. That was the last time we had a Sanhedrin. We still have the laws, we still have the teachings. But one of the things that the Jewish people look forward to in the future of being reinstituted is this Sanhedrin, the court of 71 sages, 71 very wise judges.